Freeman from the Miniature Garden Shop, and today I'm going to share with you my extreme Halloween miniature garden. This is a garden that I bring out every fall and decorate up for Halloween, and I always have a head start because the bones are here. It didn't start out as a dead garden. It was one of the first miniature gardens that I did when I was getting started with my business. And I did up the garden in the spring, and I put it in the garage for the fall to overwinter it through the winter in my garage. That winter I had a baby and totally forgot about the gardens that I had in the garage, and it dried out and everything died. So in the spring, when I discovered my dead garden, my first thought was to just pull it all out and use the pot again and just start over. And then it dawned on me that the bones of the garden were still good, the structure and the design were still good, and that it was kind of creepy looking. So I thought, perfect for Halloween. So I kept it, and I've been using it every year since as a great miniature Halloween garden to decorate with. So I literally pulled this out of its box in my garage about an hour ago, and I'll show you what I do each year to freshen it up for Halloween. So before I add anything to it, I look at the ground level, and I can see here that the soil has moved, and I need to even it out a little bit. So I'm going to push the soil together. I'm going to straighten up the tools. Right now, all the plants that are in the garden are dead. They're different shades of brown and gray. And to have an interesting garden, you need a variation in colors and textures and forms. And even a dead Halloween garden needs to have a little bit of life in it. So to highlight all the dead, we're going to add a little bit of living. So a little bit of Mondo Grass is one of my favorite ones to add. You can see this one from last year. I'm going to take him out and add a fresh one to that spot. Now he's going to need to be watered well because the entire pot is really dry, so I'm going to have to keep an eye on him to keep him alive through the fall here. So adding those little bits of live plants are going to help add some interest and highlight the dead ones. Along the back here, if you don't want to invest in a new plant for your garden, what I've done is just go out in the yard and I've dug up a little bit of our turf. And I'm going to use that back here behind the bench. Again, just to add a little bit of green to the garden. And that too, I'll want to keep watered. If this is a little bit too crazy, you can use your scissors and trim it up. Add a few more rocks around the base. Make sure that's well planted. So that's another way to add some green. Along the ground, instead of adding, say, baby tears or other living plants, you could use some preserved moss, and that'll just add little touches of green. And it also has a great texture. Another way of getting some green into the garden without actually having to plant anything is to use little cuttings of boxwoods or other evergreens that you might have out in your yard. So what I'm going to do is take a few small pieces of these boxwood, put them together in a little cluster, and then just stick them down into this dry soil. That soil is going to hold them, and you get that look of a plant without actually having to invest in a new plant. And that just helps to add a little bit more green too. And a last little idea for bringing some more life to your dead garden is to use a little cluster of grasses. This happens to be a few stems of a carex called Little Midge that I keep out in my garden. I've cut a few stems and tied them together to make a little miniature corn shock. So this we could stick in the front of the garden there, or maybe we'll add it to the corner here, or maybe even right underneath the Birdhouse would be another good spot where you might stick something like that. The accessories are also important in this garden. There's so much brown and so much gray and so much dead that the little bit of color that comes from the garden tools and from the hose and from the little pumpkins help to add color and to spice it up a bit. The tree here that was a rosemary tree, I've glued on the little pods that look like little miniature pumpkins to it just to give it a little bit more little bit of drama, I guess you could say, and add a little bit of color and a little bit of interest up higher. The one thing that you do have to remember about these gardens and all of your dead plants is that they do become really brittle. So when you're packing it away for the winter, you want to be sure that you're not bending the stems because they will break off. This little plant here was a nice little rounded Chamaecyparis. Lost its form, I think a football hit it, and it's kind of lopsided, but I just added a little lantern here to fill in that empty space, and it helps to balance out the shape of the plant there. The last thing that I'm going to add to my garden as a little focal point is a skeleton on the bench. He can be like my old rotting gardener, and I don't like to really look at the skull in the garden. I like the idea of him there, but I don't want to have to look at him, so I usually cover his face with a little straw hat and we'll just pretend he's sleeping. So I hope this inspires you with a few ideas that maybe you can bring to your miniature gardens this fall, and to give you hope when you lose a plant that maybe you can use it again. For more ideas and information, please visit us at our website, www.miniaturegardenshop.com, and follow us on Facebook.